This is Breaking MedTech. I am Ryan. That is Cope. And today, Cope.
Yep.
What do Cruella DeVille, Darth Vader, and software have in common?
I think the same things that I was going to bring to your attention, which was software, Gillette razor blades, and the Beatles. They were all turned into villains by somebody.
Villains. Well,
to help the people who were making them into villains to help their story.
Yes.
Their job.
So
is that our topic today? Villains?
Yeah, our topic today is villains. You're so smart. Dickinson would be proud. So we're talking about villains and how to use villains in stories. So this is going to be a very practical episode. We're going to give you some examples of villains, people, the way that people have villainized stuff. And then we'll give you some do's, we'll give you some don'ts, and we'll get you out of here in probably
some
15
whys.
minutes.
Like,
and
why
some
would
whys.
you do it in the first place?
Why
right?
would you do it in the first place?
I like that.
You have some examples. We'll go through your examples first, and then I'll talk about why.
So it's funny, the examples I came up with were software, Gillette, and the Beatles, and you actually came up with software as well, and I think we were probably coming from the same thing. The company Salesforce, which is now a billion-dollar monstrosity, right? When they were a startup, Mark Benioff, the guy who started the company, wanted to make software which you had to download on your company's servers to do basically a CRM, right? Because Oracle was the big hitter, and it's where he had worked. And he made software into an enemy because he was telling people, you don't want that. Like, that's bad for you. It's evil. And then he made his former company and his former mentor, Oracle, and Larry Ellison, they had pictures of the Salesforce fighter jet shooting down the Oracle biplane, right? So pretty overt, but like they made them an enemy. The other examples I gave were the Dollar Shave Club we've talked about a couple times. Startup, couple of young guys, and they wanted to go after Gillette because Gillette owns the men's and probably women's razor blade market. But they didn't, I don't think they actually ever said Gillette, but if you listen to them, they were talking about Gillette.
You know who they're talking about, right?
Right. And then the last one I came up with was, believe it or not, the Beatles. And the Rolling Stones were coming up just behind the Beatles, and the Beatles were these like mop top, fresh cut, great sound, great looking kids, and the Rolling Stones were kind of the same thing, but their manager was like, we got to stop this. Like, we've got to be different than those guys, and we're going to pretend like we're, at one point they were called like Satan. And
I know that people say Mick Jagger is a sex symbol, but I've always thought he was ugly.
Well, we'll leave that up to
his
the audience. Tell-all biography when it comes out.
Yes.
But like, they turned the Beatles into an enemy, and it worked in the U.S. where like a lot of kids were like, the Beatles, not only my friends kind of like it, but so do my parents.
Gross.
I don't want that, right? So they appealed to a different group who, I mean, it's hard to imagine making the Beatles into villains, but they did it, right? And it worked as a marketing scheme. So those are my examples, and it helped them grow a brand, a brand name, and get customers, right? So what do you got for me?
So,
right? Did I do okay on that?
Yeah, no, you did great. It's amazing. He needs a lot of positive reinforcement. So, you're spot on, right? Because you need a villain, because if a good story has a villain, right? So like this whole idea is behind it is like, you want to create a good story because people,
right?
They dig stories, right? I was gonna joke with you.
Yeah.
I write down all of my jokes and then I cross them off. Story's been around for a while, right? A couple thousand years.
Yeah.
So, the idea is like, you need a villain, and what I don't recommend people do is what Salesforce did, which is literally calling out
Right.
Because
they were pugnacious. They were in their face about it.
and the reason why you typically don't want to do that is because people will become, how can I put this over the top? A very simple way, not like people become just super obnoxious in defending something because they think you're personally attacking them. So if you're a doctor or you're a nurse or you're a hospital executive and someone's going like, hey, what you're using is stupid. You're going to dig your heels in the ground and you're going to go like, oh, you bet? Yeah. And that's not what you're trying to do. But when you pick something like, Salesforce's idea of like software, not SaaS, software, traditional software, you got to buy it and it's old. And then every couple of years you have to get a new one. And in the meantime, you don't get new features and all these things. But, that's what Salesforce actually was. And what's funny is like, I remember early Salesforce, it sucked, right? It wasn't that great. It might be much. I still haven't used it in a long time. I know a lot of companies use it. I know there's a massive thing, but like it wasn't great. But what was great about it was that you could adapt it, and there's a bunch of different things that went to it, right? When you look at like Dollar Shave Club, I think they said traditional razor companies was what the term that they used,
right. And the whole process of getting those blades, you had to go. It was behind lock and key. It was painful.
They had features you didn't care about, which actually plays into a whole thing of like, you don't need. Why do you need a 17 multi-directional blade? Yeah. Because Gillette said you did. You don't need that. Like people have been using safety razor blades for 1,000 years, not 1,000 years,
right?
But like. They were like this, and a great idea behind that is like they actually were very specific, going like, hey, if we make this blade this way, we don't have to spend that much money, which is what we can make it cheaper. So instead of somebody going, hey, why don't you have a multi-pivot head? You're going like, I don't even need a multi-pivot head, right?
Right. And if you remember, what they also then made super easy was a subscription to it that was delivered to your house.
Yes.
Right? So, and Unilever bought them for $1 billion.
Yeah.
Mostly because of their subscription customers versus the actual dynamics of the business when they did that. But like, when you do this, here's my guess, and then you can tell me from your position if I'm thinking the way you make something a villain. It doesn't have to be a person or a company. It's the process, or you're making it like hey, that's the way boring old people do it.
Right? It could be a process, and it could be that like I have stuff. The confusion, the stress that the process brings. Right? You're built, and really like if you've listened to me before, you could probably go like, Ryan, isn't the problem the villain? You go, yes, it is. The problem is the villain. Way to put two and two together, right? But you're giving the problem a face, and you're kind of using thematic ways of doing. Like if Dollar Shave Club was simply like, we have a subscription model, it doesn't sell. And even if they said like, hey, you have to go into the store. And now you don't have to go into the store. You have a subscription model. It still doesn't sell. But when they paint that in a story-like way and go, hey, going into the store is just absolutely nightmarish. You gotta go talk to Deborah, who hates her job. She's got to open this up with lock and key, and you're creating a villain of the situation, and you're using thematic language to do it. Now you have a villain, right?
Yep.
And it does this other thing. I don't know if you will feel comfortable about it, because we're two men and we don't usually talk about this. It evokes emotion. I hope everyone in the car just leaned in and they're like, oh my God, what third rail topic are they going to talk about? It evokes emotion. Okay. Yeah. So story makes you feel a certain way. It makes you feel happy. It makes you feel sad. I mean, it's like,
Angry, frustrated.
Yeah. It talks about emotions. It does all these things. So that is why you use story. That's kind of a little bit of how you use story, and we'll touch about it a little bit more on that. But before we do that, I do want to talk about like the do not do if you want to make a villain, right? Mm-hmm. I don't recommend that anyone, unless you absolutely want to be just sued, because you will be, especially if you go after a Fortune 100 MedTech company, med device company, you will be sued. Do not name your villain to be like, it is not in the best interest of, I know you're going to go like...
After the cease and desist letter comes, then you should stop doing it. I mean, go ahead, Ryan. Please continue.
Do not name... Like, you should not publicly be going out there and going like, we're a startup spine company, and you're going like, you know who sucks? Medtronic sucks. Their screw system... Like, no, because you're going to get Medtronic, who's going to hit you with a cease and desist. You're going to get a bunch of doctors who are going, what you're telling me I'm doing is stupid. And
you want to hear our Medtronic pitch when we were at Globus? At least mine and a couple of others.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, that's a great company, great products, right? Like, when's the last time they thanked you for using it? When's the last time an executive from the company reached out and just asked you how you're doing, or asked if there's something you'd love to see done better? Like, didn't say a bad word about him, but made him a
villain.
Something made him a villain.
Yeah.
Right? And you draw lines, and you're differentiating. So please continue with your notes. But I would say, like, you can do this without actually saying they're lousy. As a matter of fact, you can do it very professionally.
You could even do like the way Dollar Shave Club did it, because I'm sure they were like, we don't want to get sued by Gillette. Traditional orthopedic companies, traditional urology companies, traditional hospital software, traditional is a good way to point at the big dogs. I just wanted
without naming big dogs.
I wanted to bark so.
Well, that's the thing. People like the underdog. People and they want to know who to root for.
People intrinsically see themselves as an underdog, right? Like, everybody sees themselves as an underdog. Even big dogs see themselves as an underdog. Okay?
Totally.
So, all right, let's tell people how to build a villain.
Yeah, so you were talking about, did we hit your topic there? Because I wanted to make sure we did. Okay, good. Because I liked it. I thought it was good.
I don't like the idea of, like, again, I personally going after companies, it usually doesn't end well. Okay. All right. So how to build a villain. All right. I wrote it down. Otherwise I would forget exactly how to do it. Not exactly how to do it, but most succinct way of describing it. So 5 steps. I think it's very simple. I want you to push back on me, anything that you hear, which you do anyway. I appreciate that about you. All right. Number 1, name it clearly. Okay. So I think this is a fun example of, and you'll appreciate this as an English major. You get to come up with a fun name for it. You're an English major. Okay. Why do you deny that fact? It's a useless degree. That's between you and your decision. All right. So name it clearly.
Name it clearly.
Name it clearly. Okay.
Okay. I like that.
I'm going to give you some
Name the villain?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Name the villain. Name it clearly, like spread shot chaos, manual reprocessing guesswork, status quo biases. If we're doing something that was my favorite thing ever to talk about, like scheduling software, right? Scheduling chaos, right?
Right.
If you were
so you're not naming them.
Yes.
You're kind of naming it.
Okay,
right? That's I like that. That's good.
We'll look at what was it? ASR, right? The setup stress, or like something that has to do with the fact that they're really quick at being able to being set up as a retractor, and the whatever I forget what the thing is. It takes a long time, right? Cumbersome setup. Okay. Pick something. You got to be creative. You got to make it memorable. You're going to try a bunch of different things. Test it out. What's the best way that people actually respond to it? And then that's what you call it. Okay.
Okay.
And now you have a villain and you stick with it. Okay.
Yep.
You stick with that name once you settle on it.
It's good.
Number 2, describe its impact. Okay. So what actually does it do? Because, Cruella de Vil, what did she do? She wanted those puppies. Okay. Darth Vader, force choking. What is this? What is this bill like? What does this actually do? Is it causing delays? Is it causing stress? Is it causing a bunch of rework? Is it costing you money? Be very specific of this villain causes this issue. And you could do it even like if we're going to go super clinical of somebody going like, I can't do this. Yes, you can, right? You just got to it's no different than spine. I know you have one. I have one too. And when you would go to a doctor and go, hey, when you would do this procedure, how 30%, we're seeing stats that 30% of them fail. Right.
Right.
The villain is in that very specific situation. It might even be a procedure though. It might be the way that people are doing lateral approaches fail 30% of the time. It doesn't matter who the company is or who the surgeon is, 30% of the time it fails. And here's why. Okay.
Yeah, and here's what it feels like when that happens.
Yeah, and the stress that you got to sit down with a patient again and go like, hey, we're going to have to put you under the knife or it didn't work, okay? Show your audience they're not alone, okay? And this is something you're really good at doing.
Oh, well, thank you.
Which is most sterile apartments still deal with this mess, or a hospital down the street is dealing with this, or 70% of the hospitals are dealing with this issue, or 70% of surgeons are dealing with this issue. It makes them feel like, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not the weirdo here.
And by the way, that's exactly what most people say to me if I've done it correctly. They're like, oh my God, we thought it was just us.
Yeah.
You're like, oh no, it is
there's
not.
There's a big world out there. You're not even the worst I've seen this week.
Right.
Paint a better future. So there's a turning point. It doesn't have to be this way, right?
Okay.
And you and I have talked about the fact this is a really interesting thing with new technology, for new technology that is actually it didn't exist 10 years ago, right? Machine vision existed, but not in the way that it exists today. So there just wasn't ways to do things before, and now there's a way to do it, right?
Yep.
It goes back to something we talked about before of synthetic data. We don't know what it is. We hear people talk about it though, but you couldn't do this before because synthetic data processing didn't work. Now you can do it now, right? There's a better way. You didn't have a better way before. Now you have a better way. And that better way gives you this, this, and this, or leads you here. And then the last one is position your product as the path to helping that hospital, that individual beat the villain. Okay?
Yep.
And
I like that.
If you listen to me, it's very specific of you're not saying your product is going to beat the villain. Your product is going to help somebody beat the villain, right? So to tie into the Rolling Stones, I get no satisfaction. To tie into the Rolling Stones made you cool, or helped you be cool because your parents were, or they were punk rock before punk rock.
Right.
The Rolling Stones themselves didn't. It's hard to explain. The Rolling Stones didn't make you cool. Listening to the Rolling Stones made you cool. It's they helped you get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So.
Yeah, and I was actually going to add a sixth step
All right.
to that, which is sort of, and here's here's what it's going to look like. Here's how you're going to feel now. That's kind of the end of the movie, the end of the book.
Yeah.
Is you get to walk off in the sunset or annoy your parents and feel cool or whatever it is, right? Like you get to stick it to the villain and the satisfaction, to quote our guys, that way, right?
Yeah,
like, but I actually like your 5 steps.
You get to, I would describe it as like, paint that idea of like, you have a stress-free day, right? Like you have a day where this doesn't happen. So to tie it all together, the idea behind this is that more companies should use villains in their marketing because villains are memorable. It helps create a cause. It helps people will get behind conquering a villain because everybody wants the little guy to win, and people view themselves as the underdog. Right.
There's a great line in MASH where Hawkeye and Trapper are arguing, and they finally, Trapper's like, well, wait a minute, why are we arguing? It's us against them. Whoever the them is, we're always us.
Yes.
You want an us against them, and you need the them defined. And here's the cool part. You get to define it. Right?
Yeah, you get to define it. You get emotion tied into it. So we'll go, like, you and I both, we're not Eagles fans, but like Jason Kelsey's Hungry Dog Run Faster, when you originally heard it, not like the 17th time that a drunk Eagles fan has repeated it to you. Like, I wanted to run through a brick wall. I was like, hungry dogs do run faster. I'm a hungry dog. And then I wanted to bark. So it creates emotion. Like it creates people make decisions because of their heart. I don't care what robot in a suit says. People make decisions.
Name it. Evoke the emotion. And then the next one is make sure that, if I remember correctly, make sure they know they're not alone.
Make sure they're not alone. So it is name it clearly, describe its impact because that evokes emotion. Show your audience that they're not alone so that they feel like, hey, I can get out of here. Paint a better future, right? So here's the pathway to get to where you want to be. Position your product as a way to help them get to that path, right? And then the final one, which you said, was like clearly explain what that win looks like, right?
Yeah. Right. But I really like your 5 steps. I felt like mine was maybe a cherry on top of a really well-described villain cake, if I may use that metaphor. I like that, right? I think that's really good. And I think it's what good sales and marketing for small med device companies should look like.
You need a villain, right? Because you probably solve a very niche problem, and that niche problem is something that they probably dealt with for a very long time. And I actually think for a lot of these groups, it's a layup that they're just thrown into the first row.
Yeah, I think it's great. Anything else? So have a villain. Here's a good one from the 21st century. Make something a Regina George. That's your Mean Girls villain.
You didn't think you were getting that today.
Oh, yeah. So make a villain. And you're not, by the way, we'll talk about this sometime. You're not the hero. Your customer's the hero. But you help them as a guide to fight off villainy.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Dude, every story on the planet has ever been that way. You want to tell one about yours.
Yeah. There's 7 stories, and that all of them have a villain. Okay. Every single one of them have a villain.
Exactly. So, Ryan, I thought it was great. Unless you have anything else.
No.
I think we broke some MedTech today. This has been Breaking MedTech.
Breaking MedTech. The breakies are going to love it. Bye.
See you next time.